Okay, I've been looking forward to this one for a while, and it's finally warm enough. I'm standing in the Mojave River in Afton Canyon, and I'm going to explain a little bit about where I am, and then I'll go over a few observations I've had about this little dirt bike here.
It's mushy all through here, so there's water.
The mostly underground Mojave River flows close to the surface here, and the road is actually crossing the river, cutting a track down into it that results in it being constantly full of water. Water in the desert, even in summer. It was of varying depth up to a couple of feet deep in wintertime, but a few months ago, Union Pacific Railroad was working on a bridge behind me and another one down the road, and they needed access, and so they dumped a bunch of fist-sized chunks of rock into the river to keep it about 6-7 inches deep, and so that their trucks could get across it. Bureau of Land Management reviewed it, had them install some pipes underneath to let some kind of fish get back and forth across the road, and looks like the rocks are going to stay in the road. Makes a shallower crossing for the big Jeeps, but it does make it possible for me to get across on the little bike, and it does keep people with lower vehicles from trying to make their own way around, which apparently some people have been doing, tearing up the sensitive areas. If you really want to get soaked, stay along the edges. They're a good bit deeper. Let me get the camera set up and get on the bike already. Thanks to some nice guys in trucks who stopped and they noticed my camera and waited for me to get on the bike and ride all the way across before going across themselves. It's April 4th, 2021. It's probably getting high 80s out here. It's windy, but the sun is strong. This water feels wonderful. I'm just under 6 foot and probably real close to 200 pounds with all my gear on, including water. I'm big for this bike, but it works.
Oh boy, I've been through this before and I thought it would be shallow. It was easy enough coming out under the bridge, just stayed on the edge. And then I come along this part, and somewhere right about there,
the front wheel just dropped almost completely out of sight. Must be close to 2 feet deep. I was freaking out, figuring I for sure swamped the tiny bike, but it was still running, so I juiced it, and it came right up out of the hole, and I made it through, and the rest of it's all just about 8 inches deep along the edge there. Wow, that was nerve-wracking. But I made it, and on the way back, I stayed on the right side, and the rut was not quite so deep. It was a little easier to manage. There's usually a lot less water there, and that would be about the end of it. But today, this nice little flow will last all the way to the end of the canyon before petering out in the Razor off-highway vehicle area. The walls of Afton Canyon sort of rise up around me. These are what are squeezing the underground river towards the surface. And this is about the end of the canyon. Everything gets wide and sandy beyond the bridge there, and the river goes back underground for the most part. Technically, there's a little bit of private land in between, but that's more or less the start of the Razor off-highway vehicle park. The Mojave River and Mojave Road are kind of one and the same. Behind me, there's a lot of areas around here where it's legal to ride dirt bikes, but Razor is full-on ride wherever you want. I'll kind of demonstrate that in a second here. First, I'm going to take a break in that tiny shade right there. Still a few puddles, but the Mojave River has gone back underground here. So this is a 24,000 acre open area, which means ride wherever you want, park. And while we look at that, I'll give you some quick notes about this tiny bike. So this is the CRF125 big wheel. So the F on CRF means family. So already this is a kid's bike, and the big wheel, it's for a little bit bigger kids. But it's a trail bike, not a motocross. It's not really made for jumping, unless maybe if you're 80 pounds, you could jump it a little bit. I could jump it a tiny bit, but not much. What matters? I'm almost 6 foot, and with all my gear on and water, I'm around 200 pounds here, and this bike carries me just fine. I mean, it's really made for a 12-year-old. At the motorcycle park, I've seen 12-year-old girls riding around on the similar bike, and the stated weight limit is 200 pounds or 199 pounds, but it carries me just fine. It takes me up some pretty steep hills. I probably can't get up that crazy hill over there. That would probably wreck the bike. I did almost come up the other side of it, as you can see in this photo. But it handles all kinds of stand, all kinds of steep hills. As long as I'm going relatively slow, I mean, it tops out about 40 miles an hour, but it rides. It gets me wherever I need to go. Fits in the truck perfectly, and it's light in the truck. I can still see out the back because I can keep it straight. I don't have to put it sideways in the truck. The other big selling point for me was that Roxana can actually ride it. It's small enough. She's learning how to ride it. She's 5'1". And I have put on rescue pegs, which are not exactly legal, but we put them on. They kind of extend the foot peg so I can have a passenger, and it'll carry me and Roxana, and she is not light. So we can put some weight on this thing and still get around pretty well. I've had it in almost 2 feet deep water and it kept running. And I did carry gas out here, but I didn't need it. My calculations would say on pretty rough terrain, we're still getting about 50 miles to the gallon out of this thing. So it's pretty good. Fuel injected. I love it. I've been motorcycling for almost 30 years, but I have very little experience with a dirt bike. So I'm still learning. But I came into this with some amount of skill, so it's pretty easy for me to ride it around. Okay, you'll see this in our videos from time to time, but I'm not going to do a lot of reviews. It's not a big deal for me. I just wanted to put it out there that as a full-size adult, even with a passenger, yeah, this thing will work. It's not going to be super fast. It's not going to jump a million feet in the air, but you can use it as transportation. It's a pretty good little bike. All right, if you have any questions, I can try and answer them in the comments below, and thanks for watching.